Happy Halloween, Master Duelists. There are some who call me Tim. Make sure to subscribe because at 1,000 subs, we hit enlightenment and monetization. Master Duel has a new ban list. Hooray! Are you excited? Let's take a quick look. We have 1 week until it goes into effect on November 7th, if you're watching this on Halloween. I want to point out something I hadn't noticed before. The Forbidden Limited List implementation details. The changes made to this list reflect our aims of preventing decks from being too difficult to counter and ensuring the game's tactical element is not compromised by overly short duels. Honestly, that's a good statement, even if it sounds like corporate Japanese translated into English. But that's fine. They don't want duels decided immediately. They don't want them ending on the first turn, and they want there to be a back and forth. They recognize that. I've said before that the amount of turns in the game doesn't really matter as long as there are enough actions. As long as both players get to play their cards, I think that's good. Even if it is within one single turn. I think one turn might be a little extreme. I think both players should get a turn. I think Yu-Gi-Oh's in a fine turn spot right now if we had more interaction. Unban Merly, cowards. Cards to be forbidden. 5 units. The first 2 cards are both Appaloosa.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Dojo lore. I took a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! During Zodiac format because I moved to Spain, and when I started playing again during Tri-Brigade format, I'd realized that Access Code Talker is just an updated Dark Arm Dragon, and Apollo is just an updated Light and Darkness Dragon, which I thought was super cool. That was really rad. But one card that stops multiple things from your opponent is always annoying. I hope that Konami has learned their lesson and that cards shouldn't have multiple negates on it and they shouldn't be floodgating people because a floodgate is not different than multiple negates. Even if stealing and Regeki aren't fun to have happen to you on your own turn, they are at least a different type of effect. Evil Swarm, Ouroboros. This guy is from 2013, and he's technically always been capable of hand loops with stuff like Infernity and Six Samurai, but that was not what you were playing him for. He was mostly like the last card in a rank 4 toolbox because sometimes he would be a unique piece of removal or he'd be really big. Because those decks, Six Samurai and Infernity and anything else level 4 along the way that was going to loop Ouroboros over and over was trying to loop Ouroboros over and over. It was not that he was incidentally good. Now we have a deck that craps out level 4s almost as much as a Shizu tier limit and has a searchable monster reborn for Ouroboros. And Konami has decided that hand ripping, even at random, is not something Konami wants in the game. Goodbye, Hymn to Torak. Funny story. The first time I saw Anti-Spell Fragrance was around 2010. My friend summoned a Drill Warrior, banished itself, he summoned Dark Simorgh, set 1, and passed. I was playing Gravekeepers. I draw for my turn. He flips up Anti-Spell. I look at my hand. It was something like a Necro Valley Spy and a couple other trap cards. And after I understood the lock that I cannot activate spell cards because I cannot set them, and I cannot set my trap cards, and I cannot set my monsters, I conceded and I probably called his deck unfair. Yes, I was playing Necro Valley and Royal Tribute, and I called Dark Simorgh plus Anti-Spell Fragrance unfair. Necro Valley is still unfair. Anti-Spell is the problem. Anti-Spell is not commonly used with Simorgh now, I think ever. I think it was just my one friend that one time. Because Simorgh itself isn't good enough. But Anti-Spell is used to knock people back a turn. And losing one turn in Yu-Gi-Oh!, not the card, is often good enough to win the game because the turns are so condensed. So if there are only 2 turns in the game and you don't get to play for one of them, that's a problem. It's not like way back in the day. It is not 10 plus years ago where you can get away with not playing the game for a turn with on the back of some trap cards or something. And like Konami said, they don't want the game's tactical element compromised by overly short duels. So if you flip Anti-Spell and your opponent can't play the game, there's no strategy there. It's just they cannot play the game. There's no back and forth at all. Artifact Mjolnir. Why does this have a double element? Is it because it predicts your opponent's match slip? Well, we have another L for artifacts on card design. I'm not sure still if the cards that give your opponent's cards are the problem or these cards are the problem. I think it is the cards that give them to your opponent because if there was no way to give them to your opponent, then they wouldn't be a problem. Because the cards like Archlord Christia will always be a problem no matter what side of the field it's on. Mjolnir is only a problem if you give it to your opponent. Either way, we still have Fossil Dyna and Christia. I think Fossil Dyna is not long for this world, and I think Christia is going to go shortly after. But Mjolnir at least ensures we don't have easy level 5 access to an FTK because it compromises the game's tactical element with overly short duels if you can't play the game at all. I want to talk about Called By and Droll together. I'm just gonna kind of mush them together. I don't think either are good for the game, and in an ideal Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't think we'd have either. I want hand traps to resolve, and I want hand traps to be 1-for-1. Things like the Ghost Girls, Imperm, Dominus traps. I think that these are great cards and healthy for the game. Droll does something unhealthy in being a lingering floodgate that must be stopped by Called By, Cross Out, or Monster Negate. And we have one less Called By, so they took away one Droll. I'm not sure the math is the same on that. You can look at Called By as a generic extender for every single deck, and a card that goes in every single deck is probably not healthy if it's an auto-include. Called By is almost always useful, and it's too flexible. Beyond just negating hand traps, you can stop any graveyard synergy, and there's a ton of things that activate in the graveyard that you don't want to activate in the graveyard, or cards that pull something out of the graveyard that you don't want them to pull out of the graveyard. And I think Konami has hit the right spot with Bestials, hitting the graveyard stuff. Yes, those are only light dark, and we have DD Crow, but those, I think, are the right value, whereas Called By feels too much, and it goes in every single deck. Bestials can't go in every single deck, and they don't stop everything. I prefer cards like the Triple Tactics existing because they punish your opponent for playing on your turn, but they don't stop your opponent from doing whatever they're going to do. So if they're going to Effect Veiler your guy, Triple Tactics doesn't stop the Effect Veiler. You just then get to do something else in addition. You get a bonus. And there's a little bit of counterplay with stuff like Imperm and the Dominus traps against the Triple Tactics. So I'm glad to see both of these moving in the right direction. I think they should both be gone, but Konami is glacially slow at making the right changes. Sword and X Ryzeal. These are just the same card. Okay, they're not the same card because they have different names, but they're the same card. They wanted to limit Ryzeal's power. I'm pretty sure we're going to get Eclipse Twins soon, and the Ryzeal deck hasn't really changed. So Magistus, Mitsurugi, or Pure, they don't really change. I think people move off of Pure if they were on it still somehow. And people in other variants were already on less than 3 sword. So it hurts Pure Ryzeal the most because it didn't have that many starters to begin with, and it felt a little bricky when playing Pure. But all the Mitsurugi stuff is untouched. So expect Habakiri to go down in the future. It just hit 100 points in Genesis. So in theory, it hurts Ryzeal Mitsurugi, but they were otherwise untouched. Ryzeal Mitsurugi has one less Droll to worry about, and they don't have to play through Apollo. So I see this as a win. However, I think that this Ryzeal hit is mostly just a preemptive hit to decks coming in the future because they want the new decks to be the strongest decks so that you buy the new cards and play the strongest new deck rather than continue to play Ryzeal. Which I have the opposite opinion. I think if Ryzeal is good, you should be able to play Ryzeal forever because people will accumulate gems and they will want to play their deck forever. But Konami has shown that Master Duel is for whales, it is not for the peasants, so they don't want you to play Ryzeal until the end of time. They want you to buy the new cards, but I think players would still buy the new cards, spend their gems on the new cards, and play the game if they could play Ryzeal forever. Chessy Cat to 1. I think this is an interesting hit because it doesn't inherently hurt the consistency. I talked with some friends about a Chessy ban before Dormouse got limited because it hurt the deck by losing a name and the ability to draw during the combo. Now this just restricts how often Allure helps and how often you can start with Chessy. I was playing 2 Chessy and starting normal summon Chessy effect got a lot of concessions. It's just a very strong start. I don't know. Chessy limit is fine. It's less impactful than the Apollo ban, but it does still technically hurt the deck. I don't know what you're... It doesn't really change anything, though. It makes you not able to run the maximum, so maybe you run an extra Bestial in that slot or something else. I don't know. I don't think anything... This doesn't really change how the deck plays. Less Rabbit or less Hare would make the deck less consistent, but I don't think less Chessy actually matters all that much. Malice still has Splash Mage and Link Decoder. You can still make Allied Code pointing to a Link monster before using your backup without using Allied Code's effect to summon. So you can still be insulated through Nibiru plays. I think the Apollo ban is in the right direction for Malice to be going, because I think Apollo needs to be gone in every single deck. But I don't think that Chessy Cat really matters. I suppose they wanted to tell the players that we see that Malice is still strong, and here we hit it. And then we have Labyrinth Chandra and Stovey Torby. These are unlimited. Cool. Hooray for the 5 remaining Labyrinth players, and I like to see ban list cleanup, even as small. So I'm glad to see these unlimited. I don't think they're going to affect anything. They just get off the ban list, and we can have a little bit of cleanup. So allow me to rate the affected decks. Malice is mostly unaffected. It did lose more than I thought. So it did. The biggest hits to Malice were Apollo. So you can't freely go into Apollo to play around Nib anymore. And you lose 1 Droll and 1 Called By, which Malice uses as outs to Maxi and Fulos. So I suppose that's the real hit to Malice. Ryziel has a whole bunch of variants. Mitsurugi, Magistus, and Fiendsmith. Any Pure List is going to be hurting, but most Ryziel decks were reaching in for something else anyways, and not necessarily playing maximum everything. I think Magistus and Heraldic get hurt the most. Fiendsmith has other things that it can be doing anyways. It could play more Lacrima or do something else. It can go in a different direction. And Mitsurugi is going to be untouched. They don't get to start with X'd all the time. Look, this list already is only playing 1 sword. So this list cuts 1 X and is no change. And a lot of lists are moving into a direction where they play pre-prep, Mirror, and Maitama. So they don't really care. There are so many different ways to play Orchest that this is unchanged. It is most often with a bunch of Mitsurugi cards, sometimes pure, sometimes something else, but Orchest is untouched. Orchest was not what I would say the best deck, but it is definitely a strong deck, and if you are rocking Orchest and enjoying it, party on. And then I need to show you something that some people have been working on. And this is Gem Knight Christia. And this list doesn't even have Apollo to begin with. There are no change. Okay, that's not true. There are 2 changes. You go down 1 Droll Unlock, 1 Called By. That's the only change here. And then you can put in anything you want. Maybe 1 Ava and Greenlight for the memes. I don't know. This is a funny combo deck that reborns Christia. And you reborn Christia with Abao. And you put Christia in the graveyard with Diviner, and you summon Diviner with Gigantic Sprite. And you summon Gigantic Sprite with Sprint and Sequence. You can either make Abao on your turn or IP on their turn. Sequence is a link to Fiend, perfect for combining with any of your other link 2s into Abao. And then Abao just reborns the Christia, and you have whatever else going on. And you get access to Orange Light because this deck has a lot of fairies in it. I think that this might already be the best deck in Master Duel, and with the hits to the other decks and no more Apollo, I think that this is the best deck in Master. And yes, you can also play a tier limit version of this deck, and it exists. I don't think that this is the best version. I think the Gem Knight version is better, but I don't have all the Gem Knight cards. I do have all of these cards. I just wanted to put this on your radar. If you weren't playing Infinite Impermanence, maybe it's time to put them back in your deck. What will you be playing post-ban list? Are you excited about the changes? Are you saying good riddance to Apollo? Or is this going to be a nothing burger of a ban list? And if you like this video, you might like this one next. Thanks for watching.